Hello, welcome to OK Biology Classroom. This is a very good place for you to learn some biology, especially if you're a high school student. Yes, we are going to keep everything very simple for you so that you can appreciate the concepts in biology. This is our very first lesson. Yes, so if this is your first time learning with us and you start with this video, then you are on the right track. So this is the very first lesson, and so we are going to introduce the basic things in biology to everyone here. Right. But before we get into what you have for this lesson, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you always have our videos whenever they are released. So now let's look at the objectives. At the end of this lesson, the students would be able to state the meaning of biology, and as well you would be able to state some branches of biology and careers that are associated with biology, as well as the importance of biology. Why do we even have to study this particular subject? It's very interesting actually. Yes, so now let us start by looking at the meaning of biology itself. The first thing I would like us to notice that biology as a word has two parts. It has bio and it has logy. So these two words, their meaning when put together would give us the complete meaning of biology. So bio means life or living, and logy means study. So when you're combining them, it means living and study. So like this, bio means life or living, logy means study. So if you are talking about biology, it means you are talking about the study of life or the study of living things. So that is how it's presented in this. But because biology is science, we would describe it in a very good way as the scientific study of living things or the scientific study of life. But when we talk about biology, it's actually a very broad area, and so biology has branches, and we need to look at the branches of biology. But then the branches of biology would also be described in this way. There are very broad branches that we have to look at, three main broad branches. So in talking about the three main broad branches, it means we are talking about the first one as zoology, where the focus is on animals. So the scientific study of animals, which is a branch of biology, is what we describe as zoology. So in this, it deals with the structure of animals, their habitats, where they live, their distribution around our earth, and their embryology, as well as their classification, and so many other things about animals. That is what zoology deals with. So you can guess from the word zoo and logy. Zoo is related to animals, logy is the study, so the study of animals. Then we talk about the study of plants, which is botany, right? So the scientific study of plants, and it's as well deals with the structure, habitats, distribution, etc. of plants. So that is the second major branch of biology that we can talk about. Then thirdly, we can talk about microbiology. Of course, there are so many tiny organisms that we do not see with our eyes, which we refer to as microorganisms. So the scientific study of these microorganisms, like bacteria, they are microorganisms, and we have a lot of protists that are also microorganisms, and when we study all these, we put them together under microbiology. So these are the three major branches of biology that we can look at, but these are not the only branches of biology actually. So we can look at some other branches of biology. Now in looking at the other branches of biology, we can talk about mycology, which is the scientific study of fungi. So if the science or the biology is focusing on fungi, so example of fungi are the mushrooms and then rhizopus. So the study of organisms like this, these fungi, is what we refer to as mycology. So what about if protists are being studied, or in other words, if protists are being studied? That is protistology, the scientific study of protists. So example of a protist is Plasmodium. That causes malaria, yes. Then we can also talk about bacteriology, and you can guess from the word, there is logy, there is bacterio, means we are talking about the scientific study of bacteria. right? So that is bacteriology. And we can as well talk about virology, which is logy plus viro. It means we are talking about the scientific study of viruses, right? Let's look at another branch, which is ecology. And ecology deals with the scientific study of the relationship between living things and their physical environment. Well, all living things live in an environment where we have some influence on the environment also has influence on us. Human beings, for example, depend on other organisms for food. Other organisms also depend on humans for food. So that is a kind of relationship. Birds depend on some plants for food and for shelter. Plants depend on even a non-living thing like the light for its photosynthesis, a way of obtaining food for itself. Yes, so there is this kind of relationship that goes on between living things and then the environment, and that is what ecology focuses on. But it's also important that as organisms, they'll be classified, and organisms are grouped. And I guess you remember the 5 kingdoms. Yes, we have kingdom Animalia, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Protoctista, kingdom Prokaryote or Monera. And these are classifications, ways that we group organisms. So the study of these general principles of scientific classification of organisms, how we group organisms, it is referred to as taxonomy. So classification. Then we can talk about genetics, that deals with the scientific study of genes, also of heredity and variation. In the nucleus, we talk about genes. So when talk about genes, I know that remember DNA, remember chromosomes, yes. And that is also about how the parents produce offspring, and the offspring have or they share some resemblance with the parents. These are being controlled by genes. Heredity is the passage of it, and then variation is the differences that we observe among ourselves, right? Then we can also talk about another branch that is closely related to genetics, which is evolution. So evolution deals with the theory of development of organisms from earlier forms, because it is known that organisms that exist now developed from some organisms that existed some time back. So that is what evolution is about. Let's look at a few other branches. I can talk about cell biology, that focuses on the study of cells, right? And we can talk about anatomy, that is the scientific study of the structure of organisms and their parts. So the structures, when you pick any structure in an organism and you are studying the parts of that particular structure, that is anatomy. So you can pick the heart and study the parts of the heart. You can pick the kidney and study the parts of the kidney. Yes, so that is anatomy. Then we can also talk about physiology, that is a scientific study of functions and mechanisms in a living system. Then finally, we can look at biochemistry, that is a scientific study of the chemical substances in the bodies of living things and all the processes that occur in living things as far as biochemical nature of those processes is concerned, right? Because in the body there are a lot of chemicals, and these chemicals are involved in so many important or life involving activities, right? Or life dependent activities, if you can say so. And that is what biochemistry deals with. Okay, so now we move on to talk about biology related careers. Yes, we have mentioned some branches of biology. So if as a student you are interested in focusing on one of the branches, they have been well described. So you look at which branch is interests you a lot, and then you move into that. Good. Now let us look at some common careers that are associated with biology. So if somebody studies biology, what can the person do with it? I know this is a question a lot of students like asking a lot, and there are so many careers that we can associate with biology, and so I cannot list all of them here for the sake of time. So I'll just mention a few of them. Yes, when you study biology, you can become a biologist, a zoologist, or a botanist. So biologist means you are into research of biological knowledge, and the zoologist means the focus is on animals. Botanist means the focus is on plants. Or the person can choose to be a microbiologist, where the person focuses on microorganisms, or an environmental scientist, where you apply the knowledge in biology in controlling the environment. Then veterinarian, yes, that deals with caring for the animals. Or biochemist, can become a biochemist, where you focus on the biochemistry, that branch biochemistry. You can also be a pharmacist, that you need knowledge in biology, because whichever medicines that are supposed to be applied to the body of humans especially, you would need to understand the nature of the human body before you can apply any foreign substance or any chemical to it. Yes, you can become a medical practitioner in a hospital if you study biology, and as well you can go into nursing with biology. Good. So there are so many, and as I said, I cannot mention all of them because of time, and so we need to on our own also try to read more. There are books that also capture some of these careers that are related to biology, so you can get a lot of information from them. Right. Yes, so I've touched on the meaning of biology. I've talked about the branches, and now I have dealt with the biology related careers. So finally, that is from our objectives, we are supposed to look at the importance of biology. Why would we even have to study biology? Right. The number one which we cannot take from this position is that it is our source of knowledge. In fact, biology helps us to understand our living world. We know about organisms. We know how the organisms they function. So we know which organisms can be good to us, which organisms can be harmful to us, which ways that we can also handle the organisms, whether we would want to manipulate them, whether we would want to manipulate our whole environment, how we even care, personal care, how we even care for ourselves. All these things have been made possible because biology has given us knowledge in these ways. Okay, biology is also very important because in the hospitals and health centers, or when you go to see the doctor or the nurses or other medical staff, they all work, they take very good care of us, and they're able to do so because they have learned biology. So they apply the knowledge in biology to also offer us that service, or that medical service, so to say. In agriculture too, we know that now there has been a lot of improvement in crop yield because biology has given us a lot of knowledge about how even farmers can do their own pollination, how disease can be controlled, etc. So that has increased crop yield, and of course that's increased productivity in this way, as well as farm animal production has also been increased because now diseases are more controlled now as compared to some time back. Yes, and we are able to also do some form of selection so that the animals that have the traits that we prefer would be crossed, and that is also helping because when the strongest animals are crossed or they are reared, that increases their numbers, and of course productivity in this way has increased. Right, so in agriculture, knowledge in biology has really helped to improve crop yield and animal production. Okay, but not only in these areas, we can talk about the foods that we eat and the beverages. Then we understand that in the processing of food as well as in our consumption, biology has really contributed. Biology has made us understand how useful yeast can be in the making of bread, and we are also aware that in the manufacture of beer, biology has made us understand how yeast can also be used because of their anaerobic respiration. They would be very beneficial in producing alcohol for beer. And there are a lot of microbes that have been introduced into making yogurt and cheese. So when it comes to food production, food processing and its consumption, we know that biology has also contributed a lot. And there are some raw materials that have been used in making clothing, and these raw materials, they are all biological substances. So talking about cotton, talking about polyester, yes. And biology has contributed in improving our knowledge in the use of these substances in making our clothing and textile. But not only that, we can talk about personal care and beauty products as well. So for example, the waxes and the oils that are produced by plants, and even in the beehive we find this. Yes, these substances are very important, and they are very good ingredients that are used in making beauty products. So whether the creams, the lotions, talking about the polish, yes, what we use to polish our shoes, these are all products made from biological substances or biological ingredients, right? Biology has also improved our understanding of the use of rubber, because the rubber is also a biological substance, and the knowledge from biology has contributed in improving how rubber would be used to make tires for cars. So in this way, in transportation, biology has contributed a lot. Good. And finally, we can talk about, of course, I say finally, but this is not the only point we can talk about. There could be more. So you can also read and find out other importance of biology from the books. Fuels. Yes, we depend on petroleum a lot, as well as natural gas. And we know that, petroleum, as we talk about, this fossil fuel, yes, and these are all studied in biology. So biology made us understand what these fossil fuels are, their origin, and how they can be beneficial as well. But let us not forget that the importance that have been stated here, as science is so interrelated, there are some points that we can state here for biology. Those points would also be relevant in chemistry, as an importance of chemistry. It would also be a very good importance when we are talking about physics, because science is highly interrelated. Okay, so these are some importance that we can talk about concerning biology, right? And when you note these points, I know that in the future we are all going to do something very, 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 very good with the biology that we are learning in school, right? So this is our first lesson. We have looked at the meaning of biology, bio and logy. Logy meaning study, and bio means life, so the study of life or the study of living things. Then we came to talk about the branches of biology, and I mentioned the 3 broad branches of biology, and I mentioned some other branches of biology. Yes, then we talked about biology related careers, and we ended on the importance of biology, right? Yes, and this how we'll be doing it. Before every lesson ends, it's important for us to take an exercise. So some few questions for us. The first question is, what is biology? And then you are supposed to list 6 branches of biology, and you also state 4 importance of biology to humans specifically. Yes, right. So this is the end of our very first lesson, and let's look at what we have in our next lesson. So next we are going to look at comparison between living things and non-living things. What characteristics do we use to describe certain things as living? Based on that, why do we describe the others as non-living? Right, so that is what we are going to look at in our next lesson. So remember to be part of our next lesson, and you will find it in the playlist. Okay, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, so that, as I said, you always have our videos whenever they are released. Let's meet in our next lesson.